going to tell you a thing you don't know about Jim Flynn. He has worked on way more levels and tools for Doom than just a couple levels that he made for the Master levels. Back in the Master Levels video, I tackled two of his most infamous maps in the Titan Saga, Titan Manor and Trapped in Titan. However, the Titan Saga also constitutes what I consider some Master Levels rejects like the Far Side of Titan, Mines of Titan, Titan Anomaly, and Troubling Titan. These are just individual levels he made standalone for Doom. He has also made 4 levels in Eternal Doom. No, not to be mistaken with Doom Eternal. Eternal Doom was a community-made megawad in 1996 that featured a ton of hexen textures in Doom 2, which was kinda the novelty of the megawad itself. But in the same year that he made these contributions to the Master levels, in 1995, he compiled a bunch of his maps into what he calls the Enigma episode. It's a bunch of the typical Jim Flynn puzzle maps that we all know and love to hate. The description of the What It and It games reads like this. Clean those shotguns and grab your thinking caps, Doomers. There's 9 levels of hot and tasty Doom 2 action. For an extra challenge, play each level alone starting with a pistol. For a blasting good time, play them as an episode. All support difficulty levels and contain co-op and deathmatch starts. Yeah, sure sounds like a fun time. Yes, definitely. You should pistol start every map. Look, I'm not going to pistol start every map. Okay, fine. I'll pistol start every fucking map. Jeez. Yes, I knew you will do it. Jim, you know perfectly I'm not a masochist. I enjoy seeing your pain. I watch you while you sleep. Look, whatever. So I decided to fully live stream this WAD in a series of live streams. It's just 9 maps total, and I mean, imagine a full 32 map megawad full of Jim Flynn maps. Holy Jesus. But it should be a piece of cake, right? I've dealt with really bad WADs that test my goddamn patience, right? I've played through the Master levels and its rejects from Christine David's Clyde. I've played Trump Doom. Hell, don't even get me started when I reach 100k and tackle D-Zone. Trust me, nobody wants to see me play D-Zone, okay? Don't totally hit the subscribe button and help me reach 100,000 subscribers. Hell, I even played Blade of Agony, and the full personal experience beyond just playing the WAD itself has been way worse than this. So, right? Let's put this up on ultraviolence and hope Jim Flynn doesn't bust her nutsack too hard with his devil magics. You know the refrain, easier than it looks? Well, this map encapsulates that phrase perfectly if you're all so much into UV maxing everything. It starts by just being a lengthy map at first with this weird mountain in here, and it just branches into this area with towers with nearly invisible thin stairs in the towers. And you might feel a bit overwhelmed by the amount of monsters and the monster placement. I mean, nobody likes being constantly snapped by chain gunners. However, the way you beat this map, and this comes as a blessing for speedrunners in some way, unless you don't really know the cryptic passages of this map, is by climbing the mountain into this tiny hole in it with a chain gunner and passing through it to reveal the exit, which is rather inconveniently at the very start of the map. Look, I might be looking into this too hard by trying to UV max the shit. This is the very first map, right? And now I got this massive slap in the face by just revealing the exit at the start of the map. Now, not a good look, because there's still 8 more maps to go, and I already wasted my time going through the corridors and corners, killing all monsters in the map, and trying to reveal all secrets. Again, it's not as bad as... But this gigantic slap in the face made by the radical magical Doom mapping wizard is something I won't take so easily, you know. It's pretty much like passing through the whole process of mourning at a relative's funeral just for their dead relative to rise from its grave in the end and rip off your balls and sing to you happy birthday. You can't just easily let go of your past pain like that. Moving on to the next map. Oh boy. Rings. This is where the Jim Flynn-esque pain really starts. And this is where I had to start relying on safe scamming for the most, because I don't want to bother retrying the whole hit scanner hell every time I die in this goddamn level. I mean, just look at this. Getting the whims of RNG at the very start of the level might be fucking cruel already. Well, maybe I'm a bit guilty of this at places. But honestly, starting with a whole barrage of hit scanners harassing you, it's not good. It's mostly reserved for the most cruel level designers to do. But don't even get me started on the rest of the map. Aside of the pesky archvile that is a gigantic pain in the arse, you have to survive with little ammo and health in these sorts of teleporter puzzles and the sort. Yeah, special emphasis on teleporter puzzles, because that's probably a stamp of Jim Flynn's weirdo level design. Also have to mention the use of those Mandelbrot fractal textures in the map, which surprisingly enough is a hobby of Jim Flynn because, you know, he's a weirdo. And a wizard. Nothing can explain this weird Mandelbrot fractals other than them being some sort of wizardry spell that Jim Flynn is trying to curse me with. To be frankly honest, this ain't the hardest map of the bunch. You just think of these maps as a sort of master levels rejects of sorts of from Jim Flynn. But then you get to... oh man. Twisted. And this map really twisted it is. Just try UB maxing the shit. I dare ya. This map is goddamn confusing. The burden maze is mostly pointless unless you're looking to fight a goddamn archvile, and you'll not just get lost in this map so easily, right? But you'll also be overwhelmed by the slaughter map style of monster spam that you can find on this map. I didn't even UB max this map. Hell, if I do, I might be crowned Queen of all England and will be able to get in bed with Zeno, but no, I'm a bitch big enough to not UB max this map, because this map, like most of the Enigma episode from Jim Flynn, tests too much my goddamn patience. This map truly feels like its own kind of Pandora's box. Trying to figure out every single interconnected corner of this map just ends up releasing hell. Only instead of opening a portal to the goddamn nether realm, it opens it in your brain, causing you a massive headache. Hell, even the point where I found the yellow skull key felt like I had a goddamn epiphany, because I was already fed up with this map more than ever, even Mephisto's mausoleum. Don't take that as a sort of compliment for this map, because those who already watch this channel know what I'm talking about when I talk about Mephisto's mausoleum. God damn it, even this map feels like Titan Manor on steroids. Fuck this map. Good grief, we're halfway through finishing the Enigma episode, right? Nope. Enjoying being slapped constantly and harassed constantly by archviles, revenants, and mancubi from the start, here like in the previous map. Wherever you go, wherever you head into, there is no goddamn safe spot in this map. Nothing. You'll always get harassed by something at every corner. The cyber demon snapping you in the bottom most of the gulch, which is somehow made of the concrete gray textures, will constantly bombard you with rockets. And God forbid, if you try to manage to beat the archvile while getting killed constantly by every monster in the Dumchu bestiary, every single bit of this map is made to annoy you. Like for example, these stairs at the end of the map somehow have this lift that lowers always when you step on it, making you waste your time doing that shit. When I finished this map, skipping all the kills in secret, I felt like I somehow escaped a fucking nightmare. It's like your sleep paralysis demon is a barrage of revenants coming from your closet, and you try this all the while you're trying to figure out the map again by the way Jim Flynn wants you to figure out this map. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh yeah, the wheel. The map where you mostly spend going around in circles. And you figure out it's nearly the same shit than map 1, with the exit being easier without UB maxing the map, because the exit switch is right at the start of the level where the soul sphere is. It's already nice enough for Jim Flynn to put around a couple invulnerability spheres in the map, but it's kinda too late because you have to deal with a spam of monsters on your way to those. Let me tell you, these maps are rather easy to figure out and crack the code from if it wasn't from the fact that Jim fucking Flynn spams the map with a barrage of high tier monsters like pain elementals and such to annoy you constantly. It's like he's intentionally putting you roadblocks in his puzzle map, so you have to obviously fight off a bunch of fluff in between the goddamn puzzle solving. And honestly, who am I to get constantly scammed by face rocketing myself with a lost soul? I might as well be a fucking dum-dum. And let me tell ya, try to beat any of these maps while the barrage of trolls are harassing you on chat. Not a good time. Now, Jim Flynn has some really weird level design choices. Maybe this comes from the fact that Jim Flynn is a weirdo wizard who eats babies. but there's some really weird shit on this map. It starts fair enough with some sort of teleporter hop where you have to get all the 3 keys to exit the level. In the first section, there's this hexagon maze in the dark with lava crack textures on the floor, which surprisingly enough is easy enough to push through. But then the constantly teleporting archvile that feels like playing whack-a-mole while starting the shovel fire. The second section is a less tricky if you can quickly get rid of the pain elemental constantly throwing lost souls at you, but has this sort of weird passage with a maze of sky floor textures. What? Yeah, man, I'm tripping balls. You wouldn't use a floor sky texture like this anyway. You could use it as teleporters like Jim Flynn usually does. You could use it as an exit teleporter like most Doom level designers do. But this? What the fuck? Is Jim Flynn eating some LSD or something here? And I mean, it's most likely that Jim Flynn lives in some sort of altered dimension that doesn't really understand known laws of physics and reality here, so please watch until the end of this video. Not only because it feels my video algorithm food, but also because there's important JMAA lore in there that you might not want to miss. The third section is where the real ball busting begins. This is where you'll find your first PFG, and getting there means you'll have to crack your brain with a torch maze and shooting this gargoyle on top of the lift cages to be able to get it, while being constantly bombarded with missiles too, and also trying to beat an archvile and cyber demon while running out of BFG ammo. Now, I don't know about you, but I bet your ass that if you go to a Doom convention, get close to one of those female cosplayers and whisper to their ear, I beat the Enigma episode UE Max with pistol start, she'll jump into your dick right there. Me, however, I'm not a Doom goddess. I save scum. I suck at this shit. And if I were to do like the Sinnoh and just start a map whole entirely every time I die, I'd go to the fucking loony bin. Honestly. Yep, this map is fucking whack. It truly tests your patience. You'd imagine to start this level with the weird locked doors will be the exit, right? Wrong. It's in this end section where with the constantly moving floors and cyber demon and cacos and barons and oh my god. Again, everything in this map is constant roadblock that wastes your time. I thought Christian Cloud will do that, but seems like good old Jim Flynn can also do a bust of time wasters. I can bet my sorry transgender ass that 90% of this map, if you're trying to speedrun to the exit, is pointless garbage. I don't even know what's the point of this cave maze with an arrow points you where to get to. Yeah, very clever level design, Jim. Thank you! Oh, speaking of time wasters, here's an instance of a wizard who doesn't understand sarcasm. Here it is, the penultimate level to the Enigma episode. And again, it's whack. I have no basic idea how to lower this parent face wall in here to reach the exit. I tried so hard to figure it out. I tried exploring the whole map. I tried looking for every nook and cranny of this. I tried grabbing all the 3 keys, and yet I had to no-clip to get to the exit. But JMAA, you're not supposed to beat up to my levels like that. Oh yeah? I don't know. Do you manage to try to beat them yourself? How about you try to beat this map yourself? Sure, I'll show you.
3 hours later.
I just can't. No! You couldn't figure out your own shit, right? This isn't the worst you've seen of me, mortal. You'll see. Wowee. Well, that isn't definitely going to result in a convenient plot twist. Okay, now that Jim Flynn is gone, let's try to beat the last level of the Enigma episode. And compared to the rest, this one's a piece of cake, and thus the most anticlimactic of the maps, unless you cannot figure out the health bonus arrows conveniently pointing you where do you get to the Citadel, or unless you're blind. I don't know, I really want to see a blind person play through this WAD. The map might be huge and menacing looking, but most of the time I was able to crack the code all by myself and figure out the numerous puzzles in this map. I was able to easily bait a cyber demon, a spider mastermind, and even this archvile in a Minas Tirith looking tower without even barely scratching his devil magics. I don't even know if, unlike me, Denethor will survive a goddamn archvile like this. The most baffling part is this final section near the exit with the walls with sky textures in them. Not sky walls, mind you, like any talented level designer will do by making the sky ceiling lower, but goddamn sky textures on plain walls, which looks even more amateurish even for Jim Flynn standards. But yeah, beating this level is easy. I had my couple deaths here and there, but it didn't really require me to put my thinking cap on and clean up my shotgun that much. And I beat the Enigma episode, just like that. This, at least unlike the master levels, wasn't really sold for money, but instead put on it games for everyone's suffering. Imagine being the poor sod being fascinated by just the use of Mandelbrot fractal textures on walls and thinking this level design is unique. You just pass over your head the fact that most of this WAD is pure pain. I mean, it's not as much as anything else I've played on this channel, and this comes from the Doomer who played it. But this ain't as much fun. It's just purely frustrating to the point that Jim Flynn just wanted to cause you more headaches. This is just Titan Manor and dropped on Titan multiplied by 9 and then put available for download in it games. And you wanna know what's funnier about all of this? I keep making characters like Jim Flynn who are silly and goofy based on the representing wall alphas, but the real Jim Flynn, the actual person and not the wizard character, passed away in 2018. He's fucking dead!
I have come from multiple dimensions of pain and suffering to end your miserable existence, mortal. I won't break every single fiber of flesh and bone in your body and soul. I will swallow your soul. I will tear your soul apart.
Yeah, about that! I read enough quick manuals to know I cannot kill that which is already dead, but blow it up into chunky giblets, you goddamn weirdo wizard piece of shit! Yeah, Jim Flynn's dead now, don't miss him, he's not coming back, not even in a dozen videos later.
Burger King.